Hey guys, K&Ro here.
Morning.
We are at the famous Bulls Covered Bridge in Kent, Connecticut. And the reason that we're here is because it's just a short walk from here to the Appalachian Trail. We thought this would be a great backdrop to show you how we're going to hike the Appalachian Trail through the state of Connecticut. While we head into the bridge, take a quick look at how the trail passes through the state. Connecticut has 52.2 miles of Appalachian Trail, and the Connecticut chapter of the AMC also maintains about a mile of trail north into Massachusetts. There are also a couple of miles where the trail cuts into New York and back again to Connecticut. The official Connecticut sections begin just north of the Massachusetts border in Mount Washington State Park at the Sages Ravine Brook Crossing, heading south to the New York border at Hoyt Road near Sherman, Connecticut. Now, the ATC gives it an overall easy to moderate rating, but don't be fooled by that. There are some very steep ascents and descents to navigate that some may find difficult. All in all, there are 5 individual sections throughout the state, none of which exceed more than 12 miles. The first section begins on and traverses the southern end of the Taconic Range. Section 2 crosses over Prospect Mountain before dropping into the Housatonic Valley. Section 3 passes over Sharon Mountain, an area that offers several peaks to climb. The 4th section begins with a steep ascent of Silver Hill and soon drops back into the valley, following the Housatonic River for several miles, but be prepared for some steep ascents before it ends. And the final section goes out with a bang, taking you over the Scaticoke and Aligo Mountains, dropping back down to the river and offering one final push over 10 Mile Hill. So, 5 sections and 5 hikes. The first hike will be the shortest, but offers some of the most difficult terrain. Section 1's starting point at Sages Ravine Brook is not accessible by car. The nearest parking option means there's a 0.7 mile hike up Northwest Road just to reach the AT. But the section's start point is still another 0.8 mile hike north along the AT into Massachusetts. At the brook, you would turn around and head south to officially begin Section 1. Section 2 has good parking at either end, so there won't be any additional hiking on our second outing. Since there's no direct parking at the end of Section 3, we'll detour off about 1/3 of a mile before the end and take the Mohawk Trail over to a spacious lot near the intersection of US 7 and Connecticut 4. For the 4th hike, we're looking at the same parking situation to start, so there's a hike up the Mohawk Trail to reach the AT, and then the final 1/3 of a mile to finish Section 3 before pushing out all of Section 4, making this the longest hike. There are no parking issues in Section 5, so our last hike will be comprised of just that section.
We're now inside the Bulls Bridge. It was built in 1842 and spans the Housatonic River. We're actually going to be starting the hike about 50 miles up, Section 1, up north. So let's take a look at Section 1.
Connecticut Section 1 officially begins in Massachusetts at Sages Ravine Brook, running south along the Taconic Ridge down to Connecticut 41 in Salisbury, Connecticut. It's the shortest hike in Connecticut, and with 2 shelters and several camping areas, there's no shortage of rest facilities here. As this section begins at a brook crossing just north of the state line in Mount Washington, Massachusetts, you can bet that you're not driving your car directly there. The closest parking area is at the AMC Northwest Camp Lot, which is in Connecticut just south of the Massachusetts state line and west of the Appalachian Trail. It's pretty small and located on Mount Washington Road, a gravel road that is not plowed or maintained during winter months. In fact, the road gets physically closed with a barrier. Fortunately, there is another small lot for the Mount Frizzle Trailhead less than 300 feet north just over the Massachusetts state line where the road becomes East Street. If you are unable to approach these lots from the south through Connecticut, a more accessible route from the north in Massachusetts may be the better option. Massachusetts does not close their side of the road. An easy level walk from the southern lot along a path known as Northwest Road takes you past AMC Northwest Cabin and reaches the AT at the foot of Bear Mountain in about 3/4 of a mile. When you reach the AT, you'll need to decide, do you want to hike the trail that is physically in the state of Connecticut, or do you want to hike every bit of the trail that officially makes up this section? Either way, you'll turn left here and head north on the AT for a very short 1/10 of a mile to reach the state line. Here you can turn around, head south, and begin your Connecticut section hike. This section is pretty short at just 7 miles, so why not be a little adventurous and keep going north into Massachusetts for another 3/4 of a mile until you reach Sages Ravine Brook. The official start for this section is recognized by the AMC Connecticut chapter. The trail south from here gradually climbs 500 feet out of the ravine back to the state line. Once in Connecticut, it steeply climbs another 500 feet to cross over Bear Mountain. From there, it's a gradual descent to Lionhead's Peak, followed by a 1,000-foot descent to Connecticut 41, also known as Under Mountain Road. Now, if you've been backpacking today through Massachusetts, you might want to set up camp for the night at Sages Ravine Campsite. A blue-blazed access trail comes up quickly on the right before reaching the state line. Here you'll find several tent platforms, a privy, a seasonal spring for water, and a caretaker is on duty in the summer. Back at the state line, you'll be looking squarely at Bear Mountain towering above you. It's going to be the most challenging climb of the day. It's the highest peak in Connecticut at 2,316 feet, but somehow not the highest point in the state. That's actually a little west at 2,380 feet on the shoulder of Mount Thistle, except its peak lies in Massachusetts. You can take the red-blazed Mount Thistle Trail from the Massachusetts parking lot to get there. Looks like there's an official marker at that state line for a great photo op. Back on Bear Mountain, it's a short climb of a half mile to the top, but it's steep at 500 feet of elevation change. When you reach the summit, you want to hang here a bit. Sit atop the remains of an old tower built in 1885 and take in some crazy views all around. To the east, the view extends over Twin Lakes in the Housatonic Valley with Canaan Mountain beyond. Looking north along the Taconic Range extends past Mount Everett all the way to Mount Greylock, the highest mountain in Massachusetts. And looking west extends across the Riga Plateau and the Harlem Valley to the Catskills in New York. After descending the south side of Bear Mountain, you'll cross Brassy Brook, where a blue blaze side trail on the left leads 75 yards to the brand new Brassy Brook Shelter, which replaced the weathered old one in the spring of 2023. There's a privy here, and the brook doubles as a good water source. In just over half a mile, cross another brook. This time it's the Ball Brook, and the blue blaze side trail on the left leads to the Ball Brook Group Campsite. It's a bit of a rocky area, not all that big as far as campsites go. Another privy is available here, although it's unenclosed, and this brook and the nearby spring are also good for pulling water. In a little more than half a mile, there's yet another opportunity to set up camp. Look for a blue blaze trail on the left leading to another new shelter and camping area. There's a privy here too, and a stream along the side trail. So far, there's been no shortage of places to relieve yourself. Don't you wish it was like this along the entire trail? You might even want to stop here just to check out the view. After leaving the shelter, travel another half mile or so across a level area below the ridge of Lion's Head and begin a light ascent to the summit. On the north side of the summit, take a moment to look back north to Bear Mountain and beyond to Mount Greylock in northern Massachusetts. At 1,738 feet, the summit of Lion's Head sits along the Taconic Range and offers views to the east of Sheffield and Salisbury, with the Twin Lakes sitting prominently below just 4 miles to the east, and Canaan and Prospect Mountains are just beyond the lakes. The final 2 miles of this section drops 1,000 feet from the Lion's Head summit and brings the day to an end at Connecticut 41, also known as Under Mountain Road. And luckily for us, the trail passes right through an official AT parking lot just as we'll reach the road. Now, this lot sits in a pine grove positioned between 2 private residences. The trail guide warns not to approach them, so I guess they're sick of trail folk asking to use the bathroom. There's supposed to be a privy in the lot anyway, and there were plenty of other opportunities for a rest stop all throughout the day. Well, look at that. We're 20% done with Connecticut already. The Housatonic River behind me is going to play prominently during our hikes through the state of Connecticut. In fact, we'll first meet this river many miles north in Section 2. Take a look. Connecticut Section 2 should make for a really fun day. From Connecticut 41 in Salisbury, it offers a variety of terrain from traversing Raccoon Hill and Mount Prospect to a pleasant river walk through the town of Falls Village. At about 10 miles, a little more than 1,300 feet of gain, it won't be a killer of a day either. Camping is only allowed at the one shelter. Park your car in the Pine Grove lot on Connecticut 41 and remember not to make eye contact with the neighbors. It'll be smart to use the privy here because there won't be any other good options throughout the day. Make your way south 150 feet down the west shoulder, then cross the road to enter the woods. The first half of this section offers the most challenge. Its first mile is relatively level, passing through a town's open space before switchbacking up Wetawanchu Mountain and continuing to ascend Raccoon Hill and Mount Prospect. From there it's all downhill and finishing on level ground in Falls Village. Things begin to get interesting 3.5 miles in, where a limited view to the south over Salmon Kill Valley known as Billy's View can be had. And just beyond that is this strange rock formation on the side of Raccoon Hill, affectionately known as Giant's Thumb. Next, cross the summit of Raccoon Hill at 1,155 feet. And in another half mile is Rand's View, which the trail guide describes as one of the best views on the AT. The view looks north of the Taconic Range from Bear Mountain to Jug End in Massachusetts. In a few more steps, you'll see the Blue Blaze side trail leading to Limestone Springs Shelter. It's a steep half-mile downhill descent of 250 feet, so it's pretty far away from the AT. There's a preview here, and it's the only one available in this section. If you can't hold it to the end, just remember it's another steep half-mile climb to get back to the AT from there. There's also 10 sites here if you want to spend the night. Climb another 150 feet or so to reach Mount Prospect Summit at 1,475 feet for views stretching over the Housatonic Valley all the way to Kanawha Mountain. Now for something completely different. The final 5 miles will see you descend 800 feet to the Housatonic River at the Great Falls. Look for the Blue Blaze Trail to the Vista area. The river was dammed here and a canal dug to feed water to a downstream hydroelectric plant. If you can time your arrival here during rainy seasons, you'll get a good show from the falls, but in drier times it's not much more than a trickle because the plant still draws most of the water. We'll follow the river for a bit, crossing over it on an iron bridge before passing the hydroelectric plant. There may be a public toilet and a picnic area directly across the river from the power plant that's just a short walk down the road before crossing the bridge. The remaining 3 miles will be an easy stroll with a little bit of following the river again and some road walking past the regional high school. At the intersection, use the crosswalk over to the east shoulder of US 7 and head south along the roadway. Cross the river one more time for the day before reaching the parking lot, but it's not the last time we'll dance with this river, you can bet on that. Stay tuned for section 4. Now there's ample space to park here, but it's not the official end of this section. Continue into the woods and skirt a cornfield at a berm next to the river, and when you reach the roadway once more at the intersection with Connecticut 112, then you can celebrate completing section 2. It's an easy road walk back to that lot from here.
Alright, section 3 coming up. We're going to see some elevation gain, but we'll be rewarded with some nice scenic outlook. So let's take a look.
At just under 12 miles, Connecticut Section 3 runs from Falls Village to Cornwall Bridge and hits you with some of the most challenging terrain in the state. From start to finish, it's just one steep ascent-descent combination after another, passing over numerous peaks totaling more than 3,300 feet of elevation gain. Camping is only allowed at the one shelter and a few other designated sites. You can park on US 7 again, and if you didn't bail here last time and actually finish section 2, then walk a short distance south along the shoulder to just below the intersection with Connecticut 112. Otherwise, take the trail from the corner of the lot around the cornfield and then cross the road to kick off section 3. The trail here crosses Sharon Mountain, which actually refers to a series of peaks as opposed to an individual mountain, as well as Mount Easter and Breadloaf Mountain, ending at the shoulder of Connecticut 4 and Cornwall Bridge. Things get rocking right away with a 225-foot climb in just 0.3 of a mile to Belter's Bump, a scenic outlook named for the former owner Willis Belter. After a short descent, look for a Blue Blaze side trail on the right leading to Belter's campsite where you can find a privy. It appears to be unenclosed, so if you have modesty issues, then you might want to skip this one, or just have a buddy stand guard nearby. There's also a spring near the AT for water. Spend the next mile climbing 500 feet to excellent viewpoints both to the east and west. After another series of steep ups and downs, reach the hang glider vista, which is considered one of the best views to be had in this section. Apparently a hang glider cut this view open, hence the name. The view is north to the Taconic Range. Hey, remember that? With Bear Mountain and Mount Everett in the distance. You might also be able to catch an auto race right below you on the Lime Rock racetrack. After another short up and down, the Blue Blaze Sharon Mountain campsite trail will be on the right. There's another open-sided privy here, which kind of seems to be the norm at Connecticut campsites. No water directly at the campsite, but there is a brook to cross along the AT just past the camp trail. After a mile or more of steady climbing, the trail skirts around the summit of Mount Easter with several viewpoints to be had along the way. The backside of Mount Easter descends more than 200 feet before somewhat leveling off a bit and reaching the Blue Blaze Pine Swamp Brook Shelter Trail, which will be on the left. There's a nice privy here, so make use of it. Water is also available along a Blue Blaze Trail. This shelter is apparently well known for swarms of mosquitoes during the summer months. Probably because it's in a swamp, you think? Another short ascent is followed by a steep 500-foot descent where the trail passes through a series of tight squeezes between boulders known as Rogers Ramp. This is Connecticut's answer to New York's Lemon Squeezer, so it should be a lot of fun. After a steep 400-foot climb, there's a long, well-deserved downhill trek to a Blue Blaze Trail on the left that leads to Cedar Brook Campsite. The trail guide describes this as a primitive site with an unenclosed privy, so yeah, it doesn't sound too inviting. Hey, guess what? It's time to head back up. The next mile is all uphill to Pine Knob Vista, where your reward will be a beautiful view over the Housatonic Valley. But don't expect to stay at elevation too long because the trail drops back down 400 feet, followed by a couple more ups and downs along the shoulder of Breadloaf Mountain before finally reaching the end of this section at the shoulder of Connecticut 4. But before you start celebrating, here's the bad news. There's no parking here. The nearest parking is a sizable lot on US 7 at the intersection with Connecticut 4. However, the 3/4 mile walk along Connecticut 4 is not recommended as the shoulder is very narrow to non-existent in some stretches and it's a very busy road. You would have to head back north on the AT for 3/10 of a mile to where the Mohawk Trail intersects on the right. Then head another 1/10 of a mile uphill to cross the summit of Breadloaf Mountain before heading a half a mile down to the lot. That's going to add almost another mile of steep terrain to what you already endured for the day. A better option might be to look for the Mohawk Trail on your left before reaching Connecticut 4 and just take it to the parking lot. The remaining 3/10 of a mile in this section can be made up on the next hike. Either way, this parking lot looks spacious enough and should be a safe place to leave your vehicle for the day. Now, section 4, we'll be spending a lot of time along this river. We'll have to work a little extra hard to get rolling on Connecticut Section 4. It runs from Connecticut 4 and Cornwall Bridge to Connecticut 341 in Kent. But remember, there's no parking on Connecticut 4, so we'll have to hike up and over Breadloaf Mountain from the closest parking lot on US 7. Camping is only allowed at the one shelter and a couple of designated sites. From the lot, we'll take the Mohawk Trail, which is an old section of the AT, steeply climbing 500 feet and half a mile to the summit of Breadloaf Mountain. Then drop down to the other side and meet up with the AT, where we'll turn left heading south to finish the final 3/10 of a mile in the previous section. When you reach Connecticut 4, take a quick moment to reflect on finishing Section 3, then cross the road and focus on the very steep climb that kicks off Section 4. It may not look like it at this point, but most of this section is basically a level river walk, but you'll have to get over Silver Hill first. The last part of the section climbs again to St. John's Ledges and over Caleb's Peak before dropping once again, ending at Connecticut 341 in Kent. A half mile of climbing 400 feet will bring you to a nice vista at the height of the land in this section. From there it's downhill where, after about half a mile, the Silver Hill Campsite Trail comes up on the left. This looks like a very inviting site, with several picnic tables, a couple of which are under a covered pavilion, and benches along an overlook. It makes for a great place to set up camp. Too bad it's so early in the day for lunch, but there is a nice enclosed privy here, so it's probably a good idea to use it. Unfortunately, the well here has been permanently closed. The trail continues to steeply drop for almost another mile, all the way down to our old friend, the Housatonic River. While the day started with a butt-kicking up Silver Hill, now it's time to enjoy a relaxing and scenic 5-mile walk along the river. There will be a couple of places to stop along the way. First up is Stony Brook Campsite, followed closely by Stewart Hollow Brook Shelter, which has a nice enclosed privy. There are several campsites available here as well. About 1.3 miles past the shelter, the trail reaches the northern end of abandoned River Road. Stay close to the river along the road for another mile and then get ready for another butt-kicking climb. You'll ascend 600 feet in just half a mile, where a short Blue Blaze side trail on the left will take you to a wonderful vista at the top of St. John's Ledges. These cliffs are a popular climbing spot and the view overlooks the Housatonic Valley and town of Kent. The trail will drop a little before another steep climb to a viewpoint along Caleb's Peak, offering southeast views of the Housatonic River. You're not done sweating it out just yet. Cross the summit of Fuller Mountain next. Then look for another viewpoint of the valley in Kent known as the David Arno Vista. The final stretch of trail in this section is a steep 500-foot drop from Glacier Rock, crossing the Macedonia Brook on a log bridge. And finally reaching the northern shoulder of Connecticut 341 to end the day. Then just cross the road to the decent-sized pull-off along the opposite shoulder to where you left your car. Can you believe there's only one more section left to check Connecticut off the list? Now here's something to consider as you approach the end of this section though. The bridge over the Macedonia Brook was severely damaged from flooding during the July 2023 storms and is deemed unsafe. A temporary detour is in place until the bridge can be repaired, shown here in purple. The detour branches off the AT just before crossing Glacier Rock and runs along Numero Rock, then a lengthy walk along Connecticut 341 to the parking area. We're unable to find any pre-established named trails used for the detour, so hopefully there's sufficient trailside information. You can find the latest updates regarding this bridge closure on the Trail Updates page for Connecticut, and we'll post a link to it in this video description. As you can see in this old picture from 2020, it's a quick walk to the brook when dropping off your car in the morning to see if it will be passable later in the day or if the detour will be needed.
Just a short walk from the bull-covered bridge, there's a Blue Blaze access trail that's going to take you up to the final section of our Connecticut AT hike, section 5. It includes the 10-mile river and 10-mile hill section.
11 miles and more than 2,600 feet of gain will make this final section in Connecticut another good workout. Picking up from Connecticut 341 in Kent and ending at the border with New York near Sherman, Connecticut, it enters New York for a few miles midway before coming back into Connecticut. There are 2 shelters here and a couple of designated campsites. Use that nice pull-off along Connecticut 341 to leave your car for the day. The official start point is from the opposite shoulder though. But hey, I'm sure you walked across the road to the pull-off when you finished section 4, so just go ahead and enter the woods behind the parking area. Get ready to start climbing right out of the gate again because this section first crosses over Mount Algo and then Scaticook Mountain. Don't be surprised to see the Housatonic River again before one final climb of 10 Mile Hill. As you start to ascend Mount Algo, the Mount Algo shelter comes up very quickly before you're even a half a mile in. There's a water source and privy here, so if you didn't get a chance to stop at a bathroom before beginning the hike, this is a great chance to do that. At just 2 miles in, you'll be passing over the high point of this section where there are some great views to the south from ledges along the Scaticook ridgeline. The trail descends 300 feet, and at the 3-mile mark, it intersects with the Scaticook Mountain Trail on the right. It is at this point where things deviate from the current trail guide. To the left is the trail as described in the guide. Shown here in gray, this is not the current path for the AT anymore. This old route has become overgrown and not easily passable. Now at some point, the trail was permanently routed to the right onto the Scaticook Mountain Trail. This is reflected on the ATC interactive map, so it's always best to check there as the published trail guides can sometimes be several years old. That old route passes through the Scaticook Tribal Nation Reservation. The tribe's website and the Connecticut AMC website both still state the AT passes through the reservation, but that is definitely not the case anymore. A sign is posted trailside at the southern end showing the new route, and hopefully there is also a sign at the northern end. Shortly after heading onto the new route, the Scaticook campsite comes up on the left. The Blue Blaze access trail crosses a brook and leads to several campsites with a privy at the end, which is not enclosed. A mile past the campsite, the trail crosses into New York State, but don't rejoice just yet, it is not the end of your Connecticut hike. Then get ready for more great views along the Scaticook Ridge as you pass around the summit. As you make your way down the Scaticook Mountain, keep your eyes peeled for possible charcoal hearth ruins. We found this waypoint in one particular map, but were unable to find any photos or information about it, so not really sure if it's there or not. The trail then begins a descent along numerous switchbacks, crossing back into Connecticut and landing smack dab next to the Housatonic River again. We had a feeling we hadn't seen the last of our old friend. With 10 Mile Hill looming in the distance, the trail follows the river briefly here along the Scaticook Road before rising above again. One final dance with the Housatonic leads to crossing the 10 Mile River on the Ned Anderson Memorial Bridge. where we'll bid her goodbye for good. As soon as you come off the bridge, there will be an access trail to the 10-mile river camping area where a privy can be found nearby. And just a bit further along the AT, a blue blaze side trail leads to the 10-mile river shelter that has a privy. The water pump here has been permanently closed though, and the trail guide warns against using the rivers as drinking water. Begin a 700-foot climb to the top of 10 Mile Hill, where a short unmarked side trail leads to views over the valley. From there, it's all downhill for the next 2 miles, crossing Connecticut 55 and ending your AT journey through Connecticut at Hoyt Road, the boundary with New York State. Parking is right across the road with room for just a couple of cars, and most likely where you left yours. Now it's time to crack open that bottle of champagne you left chilling in a cooler and celebrate. Another nearby parking option exists in case the Hoyt Road lot was full that morning. There is a sizable lot on Connecticut 55, and you can backtrack north on the AT for a third of a mile to the parking access trail. Okay, maybe this is where you left that bottle of champagne chilling. Well, we have reached the Appalachian Trail, so we're going to wrap things up here today. This is only 3/10 of a mile walk from the covered bridge, so when you're hiking section 5, you might consider taking a left turn on that blue access trail and go check out the bridge before you wrap up your hike. As always, we will include links in the video description below to our sources for these hikes. So originally we planned to hike the trail through New York this year, but the trail is still closed through Bear Mountain State Park due to the storm damage from last summer. So I think we're going to officially make the decision now that we'll be doing these hikes through Connecticut this season.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's get going.
All right. If anybody else decides to skip New York this year, we hope to see you out on the trail in Connecticut.
The link below, check out our custom all-trail maps to these sections.